Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I think this is the third forum. The Chancellor is unfortunately not here because, as he told you last week, he's in Arizona meeting with about 200 of our alum at a yearly event, also to bring across our message in support of our campus. He will be back tomorrow. So today we will just go through a number of things. I want to give you a slight update from myself, and then I will ask Robin to talk a little bit where we are with our budget planning. And Laura is there. She will talk a little bit about the communication task force, what we are doing there, and then the different governance groups. And then we will again give you some time for questions and answers. I don't know if we have all the right answers, but we can at least listen to all the questions you have and develop some collective wisdom. Again, just to say that what we know now is still a 300 million cut. Can go up, can go down. They still negotiate. Hopefully it will go down. Even if it goes down to 200 million, it will still be the largest. So it will still stay a very big cut. We have and I'm going to ask Robin to talk more a little bit about the governor's state budget bill, which has now been analyzed by the Fiscal Bureau, and where we are with the public authority, and what does it mean, and what does it mean for this year? What are the questions about still effective till the 1st of July 2016, Chapter 36? What is the framework for the public authority? Who's going to make the decisions about the public authority? What do we know, and what can we change or not change? So I gave Robin a heads up that I'm going to ask her to talk a little bit more about that. On the budget itself, and by the way, we will hear more also at the Board of Regents meeting on Thursday. We have our discussion about the budget and how we're going to approach our budget cuts. As you know, I've seen in emails circulating on campus about Eau Claire and Madison, which created a lot of anxiety also for people. And I think we have to just remember that Eau Claire is in a different situation than we are in, as is Madison. And I double-checked with Robin again that the way they managed their previous cuts was kind of one time, in the anticipation and the positive hope that we will get more money so that they can offset their one-time cut with the new money that might have come in. So they are actually hit by a double cut in the sense of the previous cuts, which wasn't processed as base, and the cuts they have now. I hope I phrased that more or less correctly in my English, which means they have to take more drastic measures than we do or other campuses. Our approach, and Robin will talk more a little bit about that, is really to look at how can we be strategic in a context which we were not really allowed time to be strategic. Because the cuts came very quickly to us, and the magnitude of the cut is so big. And as I've mentioned, we still don't really know the exact amount. But we plan to come up with 20 to 23 million by July 1st. And the way we think of doing it is, or work towards it, is to get cash on campus and then give us more time from July 1st to plan to really absorb this cut. And we that's why we have the different measures that we put in place, cost-containing measures, for example, travel, but mostly look at non-essential hires, so that we can save cash by not doing any more hires, or when people leave or retire, we just don't replace unless it's critical and essential. Because in this whole exercise is, yes, you have to cut because we have no choice, but on the other end, we have to do whatever we can to protect the quality of our programs and also invest in areas where we can see growth. Otherwise, it just stays a cut scenario. Now, I know some of you ask questions about the furloughs because it will affect everybody or some people. No decision has been made yet on where all the cash will come from. There are different scenarios that we play out. We meet about daily, and tomorrow the budget committee will meet, and we charge the support team of the budget committee to really look at all the variables. And I can just tell you, and I told Kathy Dolan, I don't know if Kathy is here, she had some good questions about it. I said, we really need more wisdom and more money to get through this, because it's really a challenging environment to find all the cash this short period of time. And a furlough, of course, you can argue a furlough is a collective support through people to help other people to get through a very difficult time. And you might also argue, well, if we do take a furlough, do we take it from people who make more than 200,000 more days and 150,000 to 200,000, build a scale? That's another argument. And others might say, well, why do we take it from our own people, where it wasn't really us who managed the budget, right? It came from outside. So just to tell you how difficult it is to make these decisions in finding the cash in the way we move forward, that will allow us hopefully to be more strategic and give us more time as we move forward to ensure that the core mission of this university is being protected, that we can still do that we can still have quality programs in a way that it is possible, and also to invest in areas where we can see growth. That's why we also have a discussion. Maria will lead it for us. I think Maria with a group on we were asked to look at tuition increases for graduate students as well as for out-of-state undergraduate students, because the tuition freeze is on undergraduate in-state students. So we look at that as an option to see how that will impact our budget or not. And having said these few words, Robin, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about the public authority, where we are, and also on the budget task force meeting tomorrow, and how we look to address the initial cuts.
Okay. And I may then bump it on down the road, and Mark and Jolie here, but I'll take a first crack at talking about the public authority first. Chapter 36, which we talk a lot about, is the current chapter in the Wisconsin statutes that covers the UW system, and there are some provisions that are outside of Chapter 36, located in different chapters that also apply to us, but the bulk of the law, the Wisconsin law that applies to us, is in Chapter 36. And the governor's proposal, basically what it did, the drafters created a law that basically, paragraph by paragraph, said, okay, this section, this is what's going to happen. This section, this is what's going to happen. It's very difficult to read the governor's proposal unless you have side-by-side the existing Chapter 36 and then all of the provisions in the governor's bill. It's challenging, including for the lawyers, to do that process. So just this past week, we got the Legislative Fiscal Bureau's analysis, which is posted on our website. That is very helpful because the LFB has done that analysis for us. So rather than having to read through it yourselves, now you can see section by section a very short summary of what's happening to each section. And what we do know, and this is fairly simple, but I'll stay at the high level unless you have more specific questions, and then I'll pass it to Jolie, is that the proposal calls for this public authority to be created effective July 1st, 2016. So everything that currently exists would stay in place until that date, for the most part. We've heard a lot of questions about the fact that, but the decision is done right now with this bill, and that is correct. The decision would be made if this bill is passed in whatever format. The decision would be made by July 1st of this year, but nothing would change in the way that we operate until a year later. And we understand the intent is for the Board of Regents to form several commissions, and they will announce, hopefully soon, what the membership will be for those commissions, and then there would be a lot of study as to how exactly the public authority would be fleshed out. There will be a new Chapter 36. Chapter 36 itself, the heading Chapter 36, is not going away, but through this bill, it would be changed substantially. There are some provisions in the new Chapter 36 that provide this loose outline for the public authority, including how the board would be created and appointed, and we know that it essentially would be the same composition and method of appointment as now. Some current provisions in Chapter 36 are retained. Just some examples are the authority of the board to set tuition, although subject to legislative freezes, residency requirements, veterans remissions. There's a host of provisions that have been selected to be retained in the Chapter 36. And then there is a lot that has been essentially just lined out, including a number of the things that we care a lot about, including tenure and shared governance and sick leave and things like that. The idea, we understand the intent behind it, is that those are all things that could be then reinstated and dealt with through public authority policy and procedures, which would have to be developed. And that is what these commissions would study and would develop over the course of the next year, with the idea that that would be in place before the public authority would take effect on July 1st, 2016. There are a lot of questions there associated with that, but that is what is being worked on through the board right now, and that's basically what we know right now.
Yeah, no, we will give time for questions after we have done the presentation. So this is just how we see the process and how we explain the process. So Roman, thank you.
Okay. So then turning to updates on the budget task force. We are meeting tomorrow. That's our next meeting. And the way that we're attacking this is, as Johannes said, we don't have a current cut that we're still trying to manage because we did allocate out the cuts of this current biennium. So we are a little bit ahead of certain other institutions, including Madison and Eau Claire, on that. We are working with System right now to carefully define as best we can all of the new costs that would come with this new model. In addition to the $150 million cut, whatever that might be, there are also costs associated with moving forward with the public authority. And then, in addition, there should be some savings that could be gleaned, and they're starting to get a handle a little bit, and I understand that President Cross testified a bit about what he thought some savings might be, and some potential additional revenues. And we're looking at over a 6-year period because there are elements of this that come into play each of the next 6 years, including the ability to raise tuition starting in the next biennium, 17-19, and also an escalator that would be tied to the consumer price index that would start to take effect as of year 18-19. And so building in all those elements, what we're finding is that you can get a much better picture of what we need to do to manage this cut if you look at it as in terms of a 6-year period and not a 2-year period. So as we're looking at that, we're probably also coming to more of a realization that's going to be very difficult to institute a large permanent base cut starting July 1st of this year. And what we can do is to use our cost containment measures, the temporary savings, to help build that bridge so that we can take more time to determine the best way to take on the permanent cut. And right now, and this number is changing a little bit, but based on the savings that we think we might be able to get, additional revenues, but also additional costs, probably that number for us is closer to the $25 million range than 20. 20 is our share of $150 million system-wide in a base cut, but when you add on some of the additional costs, net out the savings, over a 6-year period, it's probably closer to a larger number. And we're just trying to plan for all of that, to lay it out in black and white and figure out exactly how we would go about attacking that. Hopefully, we will see a smaller number in the budget cut and we won't have to deal with as big of a cut. So we're trying to plan that very carefully. We're looking at, again, the short, medium, and long-term strategies. The short term being, what do we have to do this coming year to manage this? And probably a large part of that is going to be in generating some cash through different measures that the committee will consider. And that could include such things as furloughs, as Johanna said, continuation of those cost containment measures, the delays in hiring and travel. There could be some development of some voluntary targeted retirement incentives. That's something that other campuses are looking at. It could include redirection of current reserve plans, some of our facilities investments, and then ultimately, when we are looking at the longer term, that would allow us to look at longer term efficiencies and restructuring. We do know with a cut of this magnitude, being realistic about what we may be able to see in additional revenues, we are looking at how can we ultimately shrink our expenditures. It's just a fact that in the 6-year period, we are going to have to shrink our expenditures. But we think we can do that in a careful, thoughtful way over the longer term rather than jumping to permanent decisions very quickly. So that's about what I had to say on that.
Thank you. It's an update on the budget task force. Laura, I'm going to ask you to update us on where we are with the communication team.
Sure, thank you. And Tom Lujak, by the way, is at the Joint Finance Committee meeting, obviously. So I do have some updates for you today. The Communication Task Force has really been listening to a number of different individuals and sessions. We've been meeting every 2 weeks. We had an extensive meeting that was hosted by Letters in Science, and want to thank faculty for raising some really strong ideas. So I want to report out some of the things that are in the works based on those conversations. Next week, Wednesday, we will have a letter writing party, if you will. It's going to be hosted at 5 o'clock, so you can come after work. There won't be any state dollars used for this. The Alumni Association and Student Association are doing some of the sponsoring of that event. So please come to that meeting if you can make it. We have computers that will be set up. There will be postcards, letters. There will be the opportunity to tailor your very personal message, and that is what legislators are really wanting to hear, is a very deep commitment coming from individuals, not these blanket, template letters that everyone is sending the same exact message, but how this university is impacting you, or how this university you see is impacting others that you're witnessing on a daily basis. And then blending that content with some of the facts and information that will be available on site that night. So all faculty and staff are invited. We'll be promoting that, as well as all students and alumni. Another thing that we are doing is we're working on creating some UWM Pride swag. That was an idea that came up, if you remember, the last time we went through the significant budget cuts, there were lawn yard signs that were made and people were displaying those. The idea this time has come up, what if we had a button? So we're working on a button that would serve the purpose of being a very good conversation starter and really begin to, allow people to carry that message with them wherever they go, whether it's the grocery store or different public environment settings. Also in the works, we have an impact statement that we're drafting that's going to specifically lay out a story around students, alumni, and the business connections in the community and beyond, and the contributions that we see our campus making very differently, quite honestly, than some of even the other UW system campuses, just because of our location and the fact that so many of our students graduate and stay in the Milwaukee area. In addition to that fact sheet, last week we went in and we did do some modification to the fact and impact statement, which we have some copies of. If you would like to get a copy, Angela McManaman, Angela, maybe you can flag your hand back there, and at the end of today's session, she'll be at the back and you'll be able to pick up those copies. You also can pick up copies in Chapman Hall 180. The facts and impact statement just do a tremendous job on a small, document to try to lay out the entire university message. And so just know that, it is a condensed document, but that we are working on more extended documents that people can use for different purposes. Some dozen to 2 dozen individuals and different departments are consulted when we work on developing this type of document. So there's a tremendous amount of fact-checking and work and collaboration that goes into that. So again, thank you to those of you who are continuing to make those suggestions. I do want to make you aware of some new content that's available on the budget website. There's a tremendous amount of new information that has come forward from UW system. So we have the governor's 2015-2017 proposed budget that's been added. We have the UW system's proposal budget summary on that page. Also, system has put together a public authority Q&A that has been uploaded. And then UWM has also put together a memo regarding employee benefits, and that is on the page. We are also working on some changes to that website, so if you've become accustomed to using it and can't find certain things, or there's just been a tremendous amount of content that gets added. So we're working on some things that came up at the last week meeting where we'll have more suggestion boxes and opportunity for people to give feedback, and that'll be coming forward. So actionable, I think the next slide will talk about this next point. If you can't make the letter writing party next week, Wednesday, then there are some things that you can find on the Panther Advocates page. Very similarly, we want the letters that are going forward to be very personalized in terms of how this university has touched your lives or others that you work with, and how you care about this university related to the budget situation. So there's some talking points, but please always make sure to put everything in your own words. In addition to the content for putting together a message, we've added all of the Joint Finance Committee members' contact information is up, as well as easy ways that you can see all of the legislature around the country and be able to, or not country but state, and be able to do a direct outreach to them and ask your family members and friends who are saying that they want to do outreach now that the conversation is really heating up in Joint Finance Committee. The time is really appropriate. And then lastly, what I'll speak to is the communications tool that's on the right side of that screen. Today at UWM is an electronic newsletter that we've launched a few weeks ago. You're getting it in your mailboxes every Wednesday. It goes to all faculty, staff, students, and alumni. And I would like to take a moment to just clarify the purpose of this tool. Okay, and while we are so appreciative that all of you are reading, we can tell that from the high click-through rates, we also recognize that we're kind of preaching to the choir unless you all take that next step, which is to simply hit a button to share it on your personal social media accounts. So that tool was strategically designed to flood social media so that over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks, public opinion will become more and more informed about the amazing stories that exist on this campus. Our writers are putting together very condensed and packaged content that is the type of information people really share and can go viral on social media. So if you can imagine the power of numbers in our campus community, everybody has at least 100 to 200 on average, people in their personal network. And so think about it if 50 people, if 500 people shared one of the stories. And the stories that are up on this newsletter really are designed to touch a broad range of the university work that's happening. So everybody should be able to identify with something that's near and dear to your heart. Maybe it's something about a faculty member you work with or in your school, college, or a very pressing matter in your life, such as the fact that last week we had a story that reported the 5 ways UWM is making a difference on the very pressing health issues such as Alzheimer's and autism and heart disease. And it just kind of goes on and on. So take a look at that. And when you do tomorrow, when it hits your mailbox, think about, is there a story here that would be worth me sharing on my personal networks? And I'll just tease you with the lead story is phenomenal. I just looked at it before I came over here, and this is a broad-based campus story about one of our researchers who's doing work that is going to be something of the magnitude of a global impact. So I can't stress it enough. We're in that peak time right now. The letter writing is really critical, so that's an action step, but also the general public opinion sharing of the type of work that is valuable and happening from UWM. So please join us in that effort.
Thanks, Laura. Then I'm going to ask the governance groups. Stan, I think maybe right at the corner, if I can start with you and then work backwards to end with Mark so he knows when it's his turn. Stan.
I have nothing really much to share today. I hope some of you were able to watch the Joint Finance Committee hearing that was on as we came over here. I was disappointed. One of the legislators was ranting and raving about the percentage increase in tuition costs being higher than the rate of inflation. And there was no connection made by university representatives to the ever decreasing state contribution to running this institution. They just let that lie. One of the things that is disturbing is that in a time when a lot of states are reinvesting in their state university system, Wisconsin's cutting again.
Thank you, Stein. Ryan, from the Student Association.
Hello, everyone. At our last Senate meeting, the Student Association passed a resolution stating our concerns with the proposed state budget. Also, the UW System Student Representatives has started our own campaign, and we're in the early stages of that. It's called the Better UW Initiative. So this is an outreach effort that we're coordinating with a bunch of other student leaders from around the state to share our personal stories from the students' perspective to state legislators. We also are setting up weekly meetings with other student leaders from across the campus to share our perspectives and what other student groups on campus are doing and what's working and what's not working. This coming weekend, myself and other student government leaders will be meeting with members of the Joint Finance Committee. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Ryan. And Sarah, from the Academic Staff Committee.
Thank you, Provost. This week, I'll be attending the Budget Task Force meeting tomorrow. I'll also be in Madison on Thursday and Friday. On Thursday for the Board of Regents meeting, and then Friday, the academic staff representatives and faculty representatives from across the system meet, so I'll be in that meeting as well. As I said last week, the Academic Staff Committee is now meeting weekly, every Monday, to stay on top of the issues. We've created the Academic Staff news site, and we've uploaded some of the same documents that are on the budget site, but there you can find them easily at Academic Staff Committee news. So some of those same documents that the Provost and Robin mentioned are on our site. We are having our general meeting of the Academic Staff and Academic Staff Senate next Tuesday at 2:30 in Engelman 105, and the Chancellor will be joining us for the beginning, and the Provost is coming during that meeting. I would encourage all academic staff to come and join us for that meeting. We'll also have the nominations for the next ballot. So highly encourage you, if you did not, the ballot came out today. If you're not on the ballot, you can be nominated from the floor if you are eligible for the position, and I would encourage all academic staff as you can to get involved in the process. We have many opportunities for our voices to be heard, and it's good to have a variety of academic staff represented. And lastly, if you have any questions you'd like addressed by the Academic Staff Committee, you can always email us, and the email is ascomm, ASCOMM, @uwm.edu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark?
A couple things I want to make you aware of, this is going to be on the UC News website. Some of it's already there, and some will be there shortly. Last Tuesday, we passed on behalf of the UW-Milwaukee Faculty Senate, as we're authorized to do, pending their approval subsequently, a statement, and it's up there. I just want to read a couple of parts of that so that you get the gist of it. We unequivocally oppose the repeal of sections from Chapter 36 state statutes. We've called upon the Board of Regents and the UW System Administration to unequivocally and quickly affirm in Board of Regents policy all current Chapter 36 provisions. We have again called, as we did in the January 29th Faculty Senate resolution, for an open process to analyze the proposed public authority prior to any consideration for implementation by the legislature. And we reiterated our strong opposition to the cuts, particularly in relationship to the impact on our campus. Also, the Madison Faculty Senate approved a resolution yesterday, and today at our UC meeting, we endorsed that resolution on behalf of our Faculty Senate as well. We'll have that up on UC News again shortly, but the operational part of their resolution is they therefore resolved that the UW-Madison Faculty Senate cannot support a public authority until all governance groups have had the opportunity to vet it in a thorough, transparent, and responsible fashion, a detailed implementation plan of a public authority model for the UW system. And they further resolved that they recommend that a commission of UW system faculty, student and staff members, and non-UW personnel with financial, budget, and organizational expertise be immediately convened by the Board of Regents and charged with issuing a public report of findings on the viability and implications of a public authority model of operations before the end of this legislative session. Just in other terms of other things, the Board of Regents meeting is on Thursday, and our faculty reps and academic staff reps meetings is on Friday, so I will be in Madison both of those days attending those events.
Thank you, Mark. Colleagues, now I invite you to ask questions. We have a mic there. Just remember to introduce yourself, and you don't have to just have questions. If you have good solutions, you're also welcome to bring those forward. So if we have any questions, now is the time.
Hello, Chris Spencer, UWM student. You guys have to excuse me, I'm not good at public speaking as much as I should be, so I took a little bit of notes. Earlier you stated in order to fight against the budget cuts, you have to cut unnecessary programs, which is really objective to that of the student. So I was wondering, what are the risk levels of student losing high resource areas such as the multicultural advising centers here at UWM? So all those offices near Bolton or so, like African American Student Services.
So, Chris, what is the question then? Sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear.
Okay, so yeah.
Was that your question?
So yeah, since we have these budget cuts that are happening in effect now, what is the level of risk that students should have in like losing like resource areas such as African Student Services? So all those little advising or offices in Bolton.
You know, I think I would, Chris, answer it broader, and if anybody else wants to chime in, you're welcome. I think what we do is we look at everything, including the organization and reorganization of the way we do things on our campus, to see if we can have cost savings in the way we structure the campus. And part of it includes advising. And we actually look to centralize it more to see if we can do it more effectively, but also from a budget perspective more efficiently. So that would be, for me, part of that discussion. But it's difficult to pinpoint one specific area as you've listed there.
Okay. On my second question is, just being a student, we have more available to us than just our voices. And that's one thing that I love to stress among anything else. And I hear like ideas of using buttons to actually have a conversational piece, or the ideas of swag. But I feel like as a student, I'm just more than just that. So I'm actually coming to you guys with a question as in, what more can you ask of our students in which we can actually do more to help fight this budget than just conversational pieces? Because I feel like Scott Walker didn't like have our stories in mind when he made this budget cut.
Chris, do you want to point somebody that you want you to answer? Maybe Laura or maybe Ryan?
Hey, Ryan.
It's a good question.
It's a good question. I would say, you know, the letter writing party is, you know, first and foremost. If we could have students turning out in masses to, you know, put 15 minutes of time in to send that information on in the next 2 weeks, that'll just be tremendous. So that's one way. You know, right now we need to keep the story elevated about the university and about your personalized experiences at UWM. So, you know, talking to your friends, getting people to turn out from that. Some of us were talking with some legislators last week, and they said right now that's the key thing, is they need to hear from people who are concerned about the budget. Do you want to add to
Sure.
that?
I'll just reiterate what Laura said. State legislators love hearing students' personal stories. So write your state legislators, write state legislators that aren't even in, you know, your district. You know, I would show your support, whether that's rallying, whether it's telling your friends and telling them to get involved too, and, you know, talking with your parents too and their friends. So having that good communication and visibly showing your support. I guess not your support, but your concern with the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Hello, Nigel Rothfels. This is a question, I guess, to Laura, and it has to do with our overall sort of communication practice. I wrote an extraordinarily powerful letter to my senator, who's on the Joint Committee on Finance. And however moving it was, she has not decided to return my really amazingly compelling argument. And it was truly written from the heart, you know, and not only that, I actually wrote to her as if she was my actual audience. In other words, I tried to communicate. Okay. Anyway, my question is, you know, we've had a couple of presentations now where we hear about Tom and the chancellor going to speak to various legislators. And honestly, I can't imagine that anybody's mind has been changed by those conversations. In other words, I suspect, and you can tell me I'm wrong about this, but I actually suspect that all of them know exactly what they think. And these conversations are sort of something that they do, but you're either talking to people who already agree with you, who already think that you're wrong. And so, and I suspect that's the case with the senator that I wrote to, is that, you know, there's nothing, honestly, that I'm going to tell her that she's going to take any time with. And so I don't know where that leaves me. I'm happy to wear a button. I'm happy to speak to my neighbors at the grocery store, but I'm worried about a communication strategy which is directed, you know, so specifically on, as Tom puts it, on the people who vote. Because I think the people who vote already have their idea made up. I think I'm in my 1 minute. Okay, thanks.
Well, you know, you raise a lot of good questions within that question, so
I think it's what you have to say.
hopefully you do get a response from your legislator. I think there's also this issue of we can't, you know, we have to do something. So, you know, obviously the communication strategy is to address and target legislators, and I know that's where where Tom and the chancellor have their energies focused, as well as then, you know, really to make available different opportunities and channels for the rest of the campus community and concerned public to tap into. Specifically to your point about, you know, how much difference does it really make, you know, if we write these letters, again, you know, we hear time and again from the legislators that it can make a difference and does make a difference when they hear from people in large numbers. I'm not sure if the ringing is because I'm so close or far away, but anyways, I think that, you know, we have to continue on to do that. What I have heard from Tom is that there are some legislators who up for re-election who look more closely to the type of communication that they're getting from their constituents. Also, there's, you know, a few legislators that are a little bit more moderate in their viewpoint and are recognizing that the university in Milwaukee is doing some things that are incredibly different. So even in terms of Board of Regent influence, for, you know, them to be looking at UW-Milwaukee and what makes UW-Milwaukee distinctive and unique and why we need that support. You know, so I can't specifically speak to the degree of difference that it makes, but more broadly, I don't think that, you know, the budget amount has been decided on, and so, you know, that's where perhaps there could be some influence that maybe it won't be 300 million, maybe it'll be 150 million. You know, those are my general thoughts, and, you know, the more they hear from people, I think it does stand out to them. So Tom, I'm sure next week can speak a little bit more in detail after Board of Regents meeting and the meetings today.
I wanted to add to that before you even said that, Laura. I would agree that obviously from the position that I'm in, I'm very concerned about the budget cut. There's both the issues of the public authority and everything that comes along with it, as well as the budget cut. And I think the $150 million base figure, or $300 million over the biennium, is not set, and it is somewhat arbitrary in the way it was originally established. And so I would urge through the letter writing campaign or any other context to not forget about also asking for less of a budget cut and making that case. In terms of general size, the cut that we took this biennium was $8 million in base. What we're talking about is at least 2.5 times that. And so many of you, especially the faculty and staff, are aware of the things that had to be done this biennium in order to manage that cut and are still underway. And so if you magnify that times 2.5 or 3 times, that gives you a general sense of, you know, what needs to be done to manage this. And I think many of you can make a very compelling case in talking about that as well. So I think it is a worthy endeavor.
And Tom spoke last week to the fact that there was a member of Joint Finance Committee, Republican, who toured Innovation Campus and really had a different perspective once, once they're a little bit more enlightened to the story of what's happening and the research and the possibilities that are here. So, I think right now the focus is on, the voting members in Joint Finance, but also the legislature in general.
I just wanted to comment following up on that. We've been exploring in our UC meeting this afternoon a different premise, and one of the things is that, and this may be somewhat chaotic and perhaps futile, but the notion is that we're buying into the idea of the cuts completely, and we should remind people that we were actually thinking about moving forward. You remember that? It's not all that long ago, and getting more money and the kind of things that we could do. And I realize it's perhaps futile to say that, but in our conversations with these folks, we should remind them of what they're turning down here, what the opportunities that are being lost because of this, and perhaps not just buy into the narrative of the cuts and talk about still what we're hoping to be able to do with more funds.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, my name's Dave Heathcote from Biological Sciences, and I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the whole idea. Maybe this is for Robin and Jolie, but the idea is that we're going to change the law, Chapter 36, but it's not going to take effect for a year. It seems to me like it's kind of like we're jumping out of a building and hoping the safety net's going to be there when we get to the bottom. I don't know if you have any comments about that.
You don't need to be a lawyer. No, to say
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. I don't know that you'll get any disagreement that the order of things is a little unusual.
Anything else?
And not ideal. Not ideal.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions? Just remember to introduce yourself. So,
Okay, I'm Debbie Anders. I work in the library. I love my job so much. I used to say it was almost embarrassing to take a paycheck, and these days somebody's liable to take me seriously on that one. Going back to the previous speaker about communicating with our legislators, and the question as to whether they're listening or not. I just want to kind of piggyback on that. I have made this plea in other forums, so some of you have maybe already heard this. We have a general election coming up in April the 7th, I believe. And I'm not telling anybody who to vote for, but I'm saying it's very important that you not only vote, but that you pay attention to what the candidates are saying, what the candidates are doing, and how that aligns with what you want to see happen. So I'm a poll worker. Come keep me busy.
thanks, Davey. Any other questions? Lane?
Hi, I'm Lane Hall from the English department and on the UC as well. So I want to express, and I'll foreground, I understand, how desperately we're looking for ways to make cuts that give quick, kind of like cash up front by July. But I want to stress why I don't like furloughs. I think it's a really bad idea, and the reason is not just because we have to give up a paycheck, but the reason is that it takes what I think is a kind of non-productive strategy. It hides the pain. Unless we can figure out a kind of collective way of doing this that makes visible the pain, that I could get behind. But the way that furloughs have been done in the past is, from the teaching point of view, it's like you have to declare furloughs, but they can't be on your teaching days, right? They have to be. It's really unclear as what you are furloughing when you furlough, and I think that plays in to a kind of idea out there that somehow we have all this free time that we could just sort of give up and it's going to be okay. So I guess I would conclude this by saying I think it's a really bad strategy. I think it's really demoralizing to people. And I think that if we're going to do something collectively, we kind of think through how to do it in a way that people who are voters and who are legislators understand that there is actually an absence there.
And thank you very much. And that's why I actually talk a little bit about it, because I know many people had the question about furloughs. The reason why I talked about it is to say no decision has been made on it. And I need your input, because we need to get also a sense of how people feel on campus about it. And I got emails, and Kathy sent in your comments, and we got other comments. And it's exactly the argument versus the morale, the pay cuts we already took. Who do you kind of take money away to do their work, versus the fact that we need the cash. So that's very helpful for us. And that's why I say, even if you think thoughts, send it to us, because it really helps to shape the way we think to what is the best for us on campus. So thank you. Any, Roman? Sorry.
A number of comments have been also submitted through the state budget webpage and through the question box that you can use. We've also gotten comments for the budget task force. Those are all being compiled and will be shared with the task force members so they can consider this sort of thing. We are working on a separate button that would be specifically for providing feedback on the budget planning. But right now it's coming in through the questions, and we're gathering those and are going to be parsing those for the task force.
My name is Christopher Hanks, and I'm retired citizen of Milwaukee. I thought it would be interesting to come to this meeting. And my question is related, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, sir, the gentleman on the end, but you remarked that you were disappointed that in discussions in front of one of the bodies that's making decisions here, that nobody bothered to point out when a legislator complained that the proposed tuition increases were greater than inflation. Nobody bothered to point out that, well, we've been having to deal with cuts too. So in addition to inflation, we've been having to make up for lost revenues from the legislature. So I'm wondering, as you struggle with ways to deal with the situation, whether there is any flexibility to make an argument and revisit the idea of the tuition freeze. It seems to me that would be another avenue to consider, with arguments like the one that we were just talking about here, that if the cuts have been made in the past, the legislature should be reminded of that and then explain why it would be appropriate for them to reconsider the tuition freeze. Yeah, and any comments you have on that? I don't even know if that's an option.
No. Thanks, Christopher. That's an important question. I think, Robin, maybe, I don't know if you want to talk about the tuition freeze and the tuition that they reconsider.
I would just say that it's an interesting point that you make. Every year of a tuition freeze has really an extraordinary impact on our budget, because tuition is our largest source of revenue. So a tuition freeze, particularly a 3- and 4-year tuition freeze, just has a huge impact on the budget, in some ways more so than any kind of ordinary budget cut. This budget cut is extraordinary on top of it. So any relief in terms of the tuition freeze would have a very significant impact on our ability to absorb the cuts.
Hi, my name is Glenn Morgan, and I just have a question. I understand that you have to fine-tune or run the campus as tight as you can. But what makes me wonder is that we have some employees that only make $11 and some change. So if they get a furlough day, they might not be able to pay their rent. And then I'm looking at all this, and I'm trying to figure out, when y'all thinking about all the cuts and everything, I know that you want to be fair in the cuts and stuff, but we have to look at, the employees, the classified employees, and look at that. A lot of them don't even make over $14 an hour, I think, or maybe 15 or something like that. So you have to look at that and say, how do we design this cut to be more leaner when we still don't fill all the classified jobs in some areas that need to be filled? We have a lot of them jobs open and not filled. But I want y'all to keep in mind that, we have people working here that only make $11 and something an hour. That when you do these cuts, that you look at that rim too. Converts that a person making $20, 19, 18 like that, but look at that where a person has a family only making $11 and some an hour coming through the door, working here at the university and been here 5, 6, 7, 8 years because of all the budget cuts and everything, couldn't get a raise, couldn't, or anything like that. So we really have to be clear when we look at that for as furlough days, for as how we streamline, how we cut, how do we engage with them employees? What do you do with that person right there? Because sometimes when we do these cuts, the first thing that goes on the chopping block is some of the classified staff. And we don't want to, forget that the job that they been here 9 and 10 years at this university, working hard, hoping that one day they'll be able to retire. And then the other thing is, they hoping one day that they'll be able to send their kids here to the school. I know that sometimes you say that you have to raise the tuition. When my daughter started here, I think I paid $2,500 some for her to go to school for one semester. And I looked at with a small check making $8 and some cent an hour. But I look at it now with a person making $11 and some an hour. Will they have that dream working here at this university that they'll be able to send their kid to this university that they take pride in here to go to college?
Thank you, Glenn, also for powerful testimony. So, Robin, do you want to comment on that?
These are all grave concerns. This is exactly why our task force has a really difficult job ahead of us. But I really appreciate your making those comments, Glenn.
Glenn, I'm also on the support team for the budget task force, and that has been an explicit consideration as we're looking at alternatives and options and running numbers. So it is absolutely in our minds, without question.
Bruce Fetter from the retirees. I'd like to ask some questions about the philosophy of governance in the state of Wisconsin, because I noticed we danced around that a lot this afternoon without talking about it. As far as I'm concerned, if you elect people to govern, you elect them to govern and not simply to cut budgets. And I think that the philosophy of a potential favorite son candidate for the Republican nomination for the presidency for the state of Wisconsin is not sufficient grounds for cutting up state government or K through 12 education or healthcare systems. And I think it is extremely important that we think about why government happens. What is government supposed to do? Is it supposed to limit the university to a certain proportion of the GPR revenues, or is it supposed to make sure that the citizens of Wisconsin have an adequate university system? And I really hope that somehow the university will begin to take some positions on the damage which is being done to our state.
Thank you, Bruce. I don't know if anybody wants to comment. Mark?
Just quickly, Bruce, far be it for me to disagree with a historian on a historical thing, but I think you're straining the definition of favorite son.
Kate Steinbach, admissions. Laura, while I think letter writing and wearing badges is all great, and anything we can do to be showing our pride if we're alumni or if we're employees or if we're part of the 1,300 employees who happen to also be alumni is all fabulous. But I think we need to actually start combating some of the misconceptions that are out there. And there needs to be a campaign, and I realize this costs money, whether it's taking out ads or doing things that really start pointing out that we don't get raises. We haven't gotten raises historically over time. We have taken the cuts, whether it be because health insurance has gone up or our contribution to pension has gone up in the same years that we haven't gotten raises, or whether it's the cuts with the furloughs, that we don't have cost of living increases, that we don't get lifetime insurance, that we don't have free tuition for our students. There are so many people out there who are the voters who don't understand, and so they have this misunderstanding about us and who we are as state employees. And I think we need to do something to actually stand up for ourselves as state employees and point out that there is a lot of misinformation out there. And individually, I'm happy to talk myself blue in the face. I've been doing it for years, but I don't have enough power to have it make any impact. If I write a letter to the paper and it just says UWM employee on the bottom, big deal. It needs to come with more oomph and credibility than what I've got.
Thank
So
you.
good luck in all the aspects. I think we need to be doing all of it, actually.
Right, and your point is very well taken. I've heard Tom speak about this even as recently as of this morning. A lot of those points that you're making are coming up through the one-on-one conversations with the editorial boards, with media, with legislator meetings that they're having on a weekly basis. So the energies right now have been very targeted on where the votes are going to be, and then some of the public misperception points that you're raising. You know, I think that we struggle with communicating some of that information, and it's been really helpful when people have been able to frame that, again, from your own personal experiences and, you know, kind of pointing to the types of questions people should be thinking about and aware of. Our messages have really been focused right now on the value of the university, and as I said, as we talk about this new piece next week that we're working on that's going to discuss more of the impact that our students, alumni, and the business community engagement connections have has been the strategy going forward. I think you raise valid points. I do also think one of the things we hear is that there just are different opinions out there publicly. As much as we'd like to believe that everybody, you know, shares our viewpoints, a lot of people, quite honestly, have a different opinion about, you know, state employee benefits. And, you know, so clearing up that misperception is, you know, we're saying it might be a misperception from our lens, but other people, quite honestly, just have a different opinion about it.
Fine, I get that people have different opinions, but the reality is it's fact. We can say over the past 20 years, this is what our raises have been, but we never do that. So 4 years ago, we were the good little team players and the troopers, and we took the furloughs so that other people didn't lose their jobs, which is fine. I was, well, you know, happy to do it, so to speak. But it's one of those situations where we absorbed the hit, and it didn't have any impact on the students or the public. So there wasn't any of that pain of, if you do X, eventually it's going to be a negative. So I get why we have to be careful, but I do think we've got fact that we can just put out there as information so the people who are voting are informed voters. Because right now they just keep rolling along the misperception.
Right. So what we can do, I mean, I hear you, and I think there's a whole story of loss and gaps and pain that could be packaged in a way so that we're not looking as to be whiners, because that's something that's going to turn people off. And I think we'll just take it forward as a good suggestion for consideration and talk about it with the Budget Communications Committee that meets on Friday and get back to you.
Colleagues, we are close to our time. Maybe one more question or suggestion. Maria, introduce yourself in full.
Hi, my name is Maria Gajdajiska Josifowska, 28 letters, the longest name on campus, I think. And it is, I've been here since '93, and there have been many periods of cuts and changes. And this one, as we all talk about, it is not just the budget cut, but it is really Chapter 36, democracy as practice at work through shared governance. It is about the freedom of inquiry and freedom of expression as done through the tenure system. And we're all talking about all of that in addition to the budget cut. I've had some conversation with a close friend who recently retired from being a lobbyist for many years for MATC, an important partner institution for us, and he did visit me last week, and we looked at the Joint Committee on Finance, and his point was that, yes, there are 12 Republicans and 4 Democrats, total of 16, but to win one, it's 9 votes, therefore 5 Republicans are really important. And for those of you who will be writing letters, it's not only about writing, one can call, and he has actually said, if you can visit, when they have to look you in the face, that's when you get the most, beyond this wonderful letter that Nigel wrote. So for those of you who are in the appropriate districts, and if you have a chance to visit or call or write, try Senator Luther Olson, try Senator Sheila Harsdorf, Senator John Erfenbeck, and Representative Dale Koenoga. Those are the 4 Republicans who hopefully are sympathetic to the UW system. The 2 other messages from that conversation, because I was trying various messages that we're discussing here in our different meetings. And a thought that I've had is, why are we constantly being told that it's really easy for a business to absorb this kind of a cut, and businesses and companies do it all the time, and why are we complaining? Why are we not just absorbing this cut? And I talked to him about it, and I said that the best I can think about it is that we're not a manufacturing company that has a production line, and on the day when you need to shut down, you change the power switch, and then you have some products on that line that are not finished, and you throw them to the garbage, and then you're done, and then you turn it up again when the times are better. We're also not supporting customers so that we shut down some phones, or we don't sell something so they go to our competition. Our product are our students who graduate. And for an undergraduate degree, it's 4 years, but it can take 6 years fairly easily. For a master's, it's 2 years, very often 3 years. For a doctorate, it's 5 years. It can go up to 10 years. And because of the long time that it takes for a student to actually go through a designed, thoughtful curriculum and emerge at the end with that degree and with that set of knowledge and skills, this is why it's different for us. We cannot just do what manufacturing and what the service sector does. In education, it takes long time to bring somebody to that level of mastery. And he said, that makes sense, tell them about it. So maybe that's what we need to be describing. Why is it different for us? Why is it not just an ordinary production line? And the final thing he said is in discussing the Board of Regents, we are in a very strange period when a totally appointed board with a majority of the current governing group is going to be designing everything. Everybody who's gone to public authority has had a majority elected board, not majority appointed. And that is also a very powerful point, because no matter who it is who is voting on this Board of Regent composition, they understand that if they leave us to appointed boards, they will make public education in Wisconsin be open to the whims of elections. This is what happens in third world countries. It should not be happening in a developed country, where every time we have a gubernatorial election, a university system has to be going up and down with that. This is why we were protected by the state. And this is why, if we're no longer protected by the state, we have to have an elected Board of Regents. And again, this seems to somebody who is a politician for living and who has been lobbying for education, those 2 messages seem to make a sense. I'm sharing.
Thank you, Maria. Maria 28, so I will remember it. Okay, colleagues, so this brings us to the end of this discussion. Our next meeting will be next week, Tuesday, the 10th, already the 10th, at 11 o'clock in the Wisconsin room. Thank you very much. And if you have any ideas, things you want to share, or rumors that you hear, please send it, because then we can know on how to address it or improve our communication. Thank you.